Good evening, good evening, good evening again, all of my schoolhouse to the state house viewers. Thank you so much for joining us, for coming in today. Today, guys, let me tell you, if you can read this caption, thank a teacher. Yes, we are talking about different things that teachers are going through during this pandemic, even prior to the pandemic, even some things we will go through after the pandemic. But I have a special show tonight because there are some things that I want to highlight that I know that everyone doesn't talk about, especially teachers don't talk about this, but we hear about it in the news and we see it going on in our schools. No one really says anything about it, but it's something that we definitely have to address. And I've come here today with two colleagues, and we're going to talk about some things that sometimes people don't want to talk about in education. And the main thing that we're focusing on tonight is why is it that in the 21st century, it's so difficult to get young teachers to come in and to stay in education? Everybody knows that that is a hot button issue. And we've just got to figure out how we're going to address it because it's a trend that we cannot afford to see continue. And I've got two teachers with me today, two of my colleagues, and they are from different ends of the spectrum, one being a first year teacher and one being a veteran teacher. And we're going to talk about some things that are going on in the classrooms that you may not know about because you're not a teacher, and that you may not realize that teachers deal with every day, but we deal with these things every day. And trust me on this when I tell you this. We are here because we love teaching, and when we sought out to become teachers, we of course had the most valiant ideas and principles of what we wanted it to be. And we know that we've got to have flexibility in the classroom. We've got to have flexibility in our lives. And we're going to talk about some things today that we as teachers are going through right now. Some of the things that we never expected to see, that we've seen within the last 2 years. Some of the ways we've had to be flexible and shift within the past couple of years. And more than anything else, how we can get and keep young teachers in the classrooms. So without any further ado, I want to introduce, to my left is Francesca, and to my right is Evelyn. And Francesca, can you tell us how long you've been in the classroom?
Okay. All right. This is my very first year teaching. I'm a first year teacher. I'm a teaching intern through an alternative certification program. And I didn't major in education. My background is in public relations and marketing communications.
Okay. And Evelyn, how long have you been teaching? And tell us a little bit about how you fell into teaching.
I've been teaching since 2009. It's just something I wanted to do. I knew that I would be good in the classroom with the students.
Did you have an alternative career before you came into teaching?
Yes, I did.
Tell
I
us about
did
that.
nursing, and
Wow.
then I did banking,
Wow.
and then I took the route of alternative certification.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that's interesting. That's an interesting thread that we all three have in common because I came into teaching via alternative certification too. And my degree is in communications. My degree is in broadcasting. And I never, ever, ever thought I was going to be a teacher. Before we even go any further into this, I almost forgot to say this at first, but the appearance of my guests on this particular podcast does not constitute an endorsement of me as a candidate for Texas House District 131 or any other candidate out there. Their appearance here are for educational and informational purposes only. I had to get that out. Then we can go ahead and kind of jump back into this. But I started out, I don't know what, I never even thought about becoming a teacher. I never even thought about it. But when I was in college, and some of you guys may have heard this before, but I remember, and I have another colleague here too, and she's sitting over in the wings, but she may have heard this before. But when I was in college, my mother And all of my aunts and uncles would say, make sure that when you're in school, get your teaching certification because you'll always have that to fall back on. Now, what I read that to mean, and I see now that that wasn't the case, but what I read that to mean is that if you fail at what you really want to do, you can always be a teacher. So even though teaching was probably something that I was destined for any way, I never really tried to embrace it because that was what I was reading from that message. And that wasn't what they were saying at all. They were saying that this is an area that is a noble profession, that you will always be someone who is employable and your knowledge is going to be sought. That's what they were trying to say. But I took it to mean if you really can't do what you want to do, you can always be a teacher. But thank goodness, just by chance, I did fall into teaching, and I've been teaching now more than a decade, more than 15 years, and I love it. I love my kids, and I love going into the classroom. It hasn't always been this way. I can tell you, Francesca, that it's been a process. I can tell you, Evelyn, because we were co-teachers last year.
Yeah.
And Evelyn and I, it's a process. And especially going through something like a pandemic and having to be extremely flexible and be flexible in your classroom.
Right.
Last year we were teaching, Francesca. I don't even know how to even explain how this was done. When I think back on it, I can't even really remember how we did it, Evelyn, but we would go into that classroom every day and turn on that computer screen and log those kids in virtually, and then march those kids inside the classroom and sit them 6 feet apart who were there in person. And we did a hybrid, virtual and in-person class. And thank goodness that we were in there co-teaching, because there's no way that I could have kept the people who were online attentive, and Evelyn could have kept the people who were in person attentive without there being a couple of people in there.
Fear of being in that environment.
Yes.
During that time.
Yes, because that was before there were even vaccines for any of us, and we were just in there. We were doing the best that we could. We had our masks, we had face shields, and thank goodness we just had the kind of situation. And you remember when we first came into school that year, we ordered some.
I knew you were going to say that.
We ordered some PPE, some hazmat suits from Amazon, and we had the whole little thing you step into. But we noticed that when we came into the classroom situation, and I don't know how they got together and figured out how they were going to do this, but they really pulled out all the stops to try to make that a safe situation for us.
Well, I think teachers also learn to adapt.
Absolutely.
Because we knew we had to be there.
Yes.
And we knew we had to service these. So eventually we allow our heart to take over our mind.
That's true.
And we just adapted and kept it moving.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, when we got in there, our principal told us, he said, well, I'm going to tell you all this. Do whatever you need to do to feel comfortable in that classroom. And when you get that kind of information, it makes you breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief. Because he said, whatever you need to do to make you feel comfortable, because at the end of the day, you've got to feel comfortable in there.
Yeah.
And we had very limited occurrences of the virus among teachers. We did have some breakthroughs among teachers, but because we were in a situation where we were allowed to do what was comfortable for us, it was a little bit better for us. Francesca, let me ask you this. Are you a Texas native? And you are a Texas native. Well, let me ask you this. What part of Texas are you from?
Born and raised in Houstonian.
You are a native Houstonian.
Wow.
Native Houstonians rock. Yay, I'm a native Houstonian too. Okay. Nothing against New Yorkers. Nothing against New Yorkers. Miss Mitchell is a New Yorker. Nothing against people from Louisiana. We love Louisiana too. But that's right. Houston teachers rock. Okay. So we're all in Houston now. We're all in the same place. Even though we may not have been born here, we got here as soon as we could, right? That's right. That's right. Um, Let me ask both of you ladies, just out of curiosity, was teaching in your families?
Yes.
So how many generations of teachers?
It's one generation, and it's interesting because my father was also in the same alternative certification
Yeah.
program, and he was a Catholic priest.
Wow.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Wow.
And how about you?
No one.
No
Not
one.
one person.
Wow.
They're all in nursing, and my sister does psychiatry. Not one person in teaching.
Wow. Now, Francesca, you said that originally you were a public relations major. What
English major.
an English major,
Yes.
but you worked in public relations. Yes.
Mhm.
So being an English major, what made you leave and working in public relations, what made you leave that particular discipline and decide, I think I'm going to try my hand at teaching?
So
What was the catalyst?
I was always in love with English language, literature, things like that. I, for the most part, majored in poetry in
Mhm.
college, but I knew because of my background that I needed a practical way to take care of myself.
Yes.
So I minored in communications to have a job when I graduated.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I did like 4 internships during my undergraduate for nonprofits, things like that. And then when I got into public relations, like I love writing, I'm very good at it, but the pay wasn't there,
Right.
and
Right.
something had to give. And so I saw teaching as an opportunity where I could still take my love of literature and then also have a moral connection to my work.
Yes.
And I saw that it would be a good career change.
Yes. Yes. So and really it's not a huge jump going from English and public relations to teaching, especially because you're an English teacher or an ELA teacher, and basically you're doing a lot of the same stuff in a completely different realm,
Mhm.
but you're doing some of the same things. Now, Evelyn,
Mhm.
what made you decide to leave the career that you were in? So you were in nursing right before teaching.
Right.
What made you? Because both of those are really, it's a service industry.
Well,
It really is.
it is, but just coming from a West Indian family,
Mhm.
they said to us, you have to become a nurse's job security.
Wow. Okay.
So all of
Almost
us,
like they said to me about teaching. Yes.
all of us went and got our CNAs, we got our LVN,
Yes.
and finally I was like, I'm gonna do what I want to do.
Right.
I'm done playing this play it safe role.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Now some people say that about teaching. They said, well, like my family did. They said, well, you can just always be a teacher, but maybe they knew because I came from a long line of teachers from the early 1900s. Yes, my grandparents and their parents were teachers, and that was my mother taught for a little while on the college level. My aunts and uncles taught. Most of them were teachers in some respect. Now they segued into other things, but they all came through the teaching profession. So maybe it does kind of run in your blood on some level. Um, but with that in mind, all of us, especially from 2019 forward, we have grown in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
We've grown in a lot of ways. Now, coming from public relations, when the pandemic met you, you were not in teaching yet.
I was not.
You were not. And coming into teaching in a pandemic climate, in a COVID, because you actually came in right in the thick
Yes.
of the COVID climate. What was that like? What were some of the challenges that you didn't foresee? Some things you can foresee, but what were some of the things that you never could have imagined?
I didn't anticipate the aftermath of those students lacking that critical socialization.
Yes.
And
Oh gosh,
the
yes.
socialization wasn't there. They're reacclimating to the classroom.
Yes.
The behavioral issues that come from that.
Yes.
And knowing that as a society, we're dealing with the trauma of the pandemic.
Right.
But there's no social emotional learning that
Yeah.
there needs to be more value on social emotional learning.
That's very, very, very true. And you made a statement that I'm glad that I am not the only one who was experiencing that, because we talked about that when we had some other teachers here. Some of our other colleagues, Ms. Menarez, Mr. Mune was here, and Ms. Roy was here, and we talked about the type of after effect
Mm-hmm.
that something like this, that pulling the students out of the classroom, now for their own good, mind you, for everyone's safety, but taking them away in a critical point in their lives from socialization with their peers, or even learning correct interaction with adults, is something that I didn't realize would have the type of backlash that it's had. And would you say that we're still dealing with it now?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the thing about it is, sometimes you think that, oh, this will go away, this will pass, but I'm starting to realize exactly what you said, that probably more so for us, for them than for us, it's easier for us to reacclimate. But for middle school students like we teach, they're going through a very transitional period anyway, and being taken out of that abruptly, and some of the students not having other siblings at home, or having much younger siblings, and having to step into the role of a parent as well as a student, trying to maneuver that. And I remember at the beginning of the year when we first started, having to go into the virtual situation before we even came back.
Yeah.
We were trying to figure out how to scramble and get all of the computers, the laptops we could find, the old ones and new ones in the school that were already there, and try to get those passed out to students.
Yeah.
So literally, you had some situations where you had one laptop at home and four students who had to try to use that laptop.
The internet, but I think the mistake we made, not we as teachers, but as a society, we didn't provide support for these students when they returned. We were offered counseling. We were free.
Yeah.
But when the students returned, there was nothing there for them.
And you know what? You're absolutely right about that, and it's exactly what you just said, Francesca. Because I'm wondering if it was thought that since the students are younger, they're more resilient and they'll just bounce back. Maybe, it's hard. It's hard when you haven't dealt with a similar situation. It's hard to anticipate what the needs may be, but definitely there were needs, social emotional needs, that our students are still grappling with right now.
And that's what makes our job hard, because we're not only educating them,
Yeah.
we're mother, we're father, we're giving them the support. And since we don't have that available for them, it's our job to do it. And it's not our job, but we do it.
It really is.
So we take on more roles now
Absolutely.
than we normally would take on.
Plus, at that age, like, you don't have the vocabulary for what is happening.
Yes, to express what you're. Yes.
You don't know what you're feeling because you never felt it before.
Yes.
And then there's this stigma in families against therapy and things like that. And so the students come to you with their issues and you want to help them, but then that becomes taxing on you.
Yes.
And so.
Yes. It not only does it become taxing, but you find yourself in a classroom where you have students. Many times, students are lashing out. They don't even know many times why they're so stressed out, why they're lashing out, until you start digging a little deeper, or you get paperwork that may say someone just had a parent or a loved one in the household succumb to COVID, and things like this. And at that point, what do you say? Do you spark a conversation with the student about that? Do you leave it alone? Is that not your wheelhouse? So as teachers, you're not sure exactly which hat to put on every day. And I know, Ms. Mitchell, you have been at our school for several years. So the students that are there now, you've had many of those students, you've had them since they were in the sixth grade.
Right.
And you've seen the changes take place, and you know the backstory
Yeah.
of a lot of the
And I've
students.
taught their siblings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've taught their siblings, and you've watched some things happen. We had a young lady last year, and you were able to come to me and tell me the backstory when I was observing some things that were happening, and I didn't know what was going on. And you said, "Okay, Crystal, let me tell you what's going on with this one."
Right.
Because we saw some things, and you know, we're talking about simply the pandemic now, but think about everything that's happening with the pandemic and the other regular preteen issues
Mhm.
that are coupled onto that. Let me ask you guys this: how much do you think important and crucial learning can happen with those variables in place?
Mm.
Or do you think simply it will be a slowed down process? Or do you know, is should we pump the brakes and say, okay, let's try to meet these students' needs, the socio emotional needs? Do you know what do we do? What are some of the things that we can do?
Well, if I have anxiety
Yeah,
and I've been stuck in the house,
yeah,
and now you have me in a building and it's test, 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 score, score, score.
yeah.
You give me nothing else, there's no balance. I mean, even if it was like, okay, I don't know, yoga for something, or teach them how to meditate, or
I like that
something.
idea. I like that
Right?
idea.
Something to break away from the rigmarole of test, 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 score, score, score.
So there's got to be a
There
balance
has to be a
with,
for
and
all
probably
of us. There has to be a
and probably
balance.
probably more so now than before.
And that's why my hat's off to you.
Yeah,
You deserve more credit than you give yourself credit for.
Yeah.
Here's why. You came into teaching during the time where the kids are more challenging
yes,
to deal
than
with
ever,
than
than ever.
ever before. And you're still standing.
Yes.
Remember that.
Leaning a little.
Yeah.
I'm leaning a little.
It's not an easy job, but give yourself credit for that.
And she came from an alternative certification background, so she didn't have the the added value of being able to student teach and that kind of thing. What were some of the training that you actually had to have in preparation for going into the classroom?
Oh my goodness. So I didn't have any. I didn't know what a 12-year-old really looked like until I showed
Yeah.
up on the first day.
Yeah.
Like all of our training was online. We didn't meet over the summer.
Wow.
Because of the pandemic.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so one of my colleagues asked me. He went, "Did you student teach anywhere?" And I was like, "Nope. I just showed up." Yeah.
Wow.
And see,
Yeah.
that's, if I may add to that,
Mhm.
that is the problem with the, and I hate to say this,
Uh-huh.
alternative certification. Because if you don't do associate
Which we
teaching,
all came through. We all came
no,
through.
well, I did associate teaching first.
Oh, you did?
I
Okay.
have. Oh,
Okay.
gosh.
Okay.
I had to know what I was getting myself
Okay.
into.
I did alternative.
So what happens is you get the new teachers through alternative
Yeah.
with no teaching experience, and they have no idea what they're getting ready to walk into. But lucky, they have people like Miss Roy, Miss Eze, myself.
Right.
We grow you guys up.
You really
So then
do.
we have the burden of nurturing and growing other teachers.
Now, you just walked into the area that I wanted to touch on, Miss Mitchell, because this is why I really wanted to do this podcast, because it is going to be crucial for us to figure out how to retain teachers like you, because in huge numbers our young teachers are coming in, but they're not staying. And at the 5 year mark, we have such attrition of the teachers that have come in. And let me ask you this, Francesca, just from you being here half a year, just half of a year so far, what are some of the things that you think would have helped you when you were coming in to acclimate yourself better, or to get a better balance or sense of a foothold?
Mhm. I, there's so much.
Well, let me break it down a little bit.
Mhm.
Tell me some of the things that could have helped you, because I'm a firm believer in this.
Mhm.
As a teacher, we got to be resourceful,
Mhm.
and we've got to come up with our own solutions sometimes and stop looking to others to solve our problems. I've always been the type of person, and anyone who knows me, the one thing that I tell them is that for the most part, as a teacher, I'm pretty self-contained. I go out and get things that I know that I'm going to need so that I don't have to request them. But that's just me, because I like for my environment to be comfortable.
Right.
So I've got my own copy machines. I've got my own laminators. I've got my own things that I need to be able to function. And in an ideal situation, that wouldn't necessarily have been the case, but it just depends on from school to school, from district to district. Things are just different in different places. But from the standpoint of the type of guidance or support that you could benefit from another teacher, maybe a veteran teacher, what are some things that veteran teachers could step in to help the newer teachers with, as far as navigating those waters straight out of the gate like
Well, I
that?
think the veteran teachers, like they jump in to help regardless. I think that admin might play a bigger role.
Okay.
I was told by a substitute, nobody's going to tell you what you need to know. You need to ask questions, but then
Right.
you don't know what questions to ask.
You don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for example, like how to turn in my grades.
Yes. No one told.
Yeah,
Yes.
no one
Yes.
explained that to me. Just processes that people anticipate that you know, but there's
Yes.
no possible way.
That you could know.
Yeah.
They didn't assign
Yes.
you a teacher, what is it called?
I wasn't a mentor.
Mentor.
No, I didn't get one when I first came in either, except I got one my second year. And that was one of our other colleagues who happens to be here in the studio. Her name was Mrs. Sanders. And they sent all the new teachers to Mrs. Sanders, and Mrs. Sanders was the one who could answer all those questions, and she had the right demeanor. She, she was always on a completely even keel, and when you were frustrated about something, she was so even tempered that she would kind of bring you down. But there's no way for you to know when to turn in grades. There's no way for you to know um, when you have a PLC. Are you supposed to meet with your team every day of that PLC? Every day that you have an off period, do you meet twice a month? Things like that. When are you supposed to be able to do grades during your planning time, or is that simply for planning lessons? Questions to ask like that you don't know to ask as a new
teacher
teacher.
mentor is supposed to tell you
If you
and guide you.
if you have a teacher mentor.
And if we would structure education to where new teachers had, like we have the teacher specialist come in.
Yes.
We had someone come in that
we don't need them.
works with the new teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Like for your alternative, you have someone that shows up to observe, but they don't necessarily support.
No.
Well,
that's good.
With my program, they've been very supportive.
Okay,
But
good.
they've been more pedagogy, things like that, systems and procedures. But as far as like the logistics of everyday,
Day to day.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, but as far as like, all those other things, the program's been very supportive.
Yeah.
Good.
So when it comes, so that's one thing. Definitely support when it comes to just your basic housekeeping things, like when are grades due, or is it 12 noon? Is it midnight? Who do you turn them into? Do you put them in someone's box in the office, or are they all submitted? Do you need to print out a copy? I remember, things like that used to frustrate me so much, because I would find out about it when someone would come and there would be a slip in my box as to why I didn't do it. And I didn't know to do it.
Yes.
you know, and that's the kind of thing that is frustrating, but could definitely be could be curtailed if you have a mentor that's assigned to you that says, don't sweat that. Just as soon as you type it out, print it, and then stick it in that person's box and make sure you cover yourself.
Well, see, times have changed because that wasn't how it was when I first started.
Yeah.
I had support across the board,
Yeah.
and having a mentor was critical.
Absolutely.
One that cared.
Now, if that, so that brings us back to this. If that was not assigned to you, what can we as veteran teachers do? Do we need to have a teacher corps within each building that we get together as veteran teachers and say, if someone has not been assigned something, or to tell the new teachers, if you guys need something, if you need something that has to do with grades, go to Miss Mitchell. If you need something that has to do with how do you do a write-up, if you have to have one, go to Miss Dillard, or little things like that. Do you think that's something that we as teachers need to come together and put together ourselves?
That's a good idea, actually. That's a really good idea, but I think
it also puts more burden on the teachers.
Right, but if, like back in the day,
Yeah.
we exchanged phone numbers.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it should, if we were in the same grade level, I would have been like, here, take my number.
And you have everybody's number.
Call me on the weekend. Call me whenever.
Yes. And you know what? I'm going to address that too, Evelyn, because think about this. Even at the school that we're at right now, things are so different, Francesca. Things are so different even than they were a couple of years ago, simply because we can't have that one-on-one contact. There are teachers that I don't even know. Just think about it. Think about our interaction. We used to, when we would meet once every 2 weeks, we were all together in a big area, and we'd have grade levels, we'd have potlucks, and we'd all get together and do that and that was fun. And we did that all the time. With every birthday, we have a potluck and a birthday party, and you just knew that the teacher next door to you had your back. Now, here's one thing that someone said to me, and I used to use this a lot, Francesca and Evelyn. I used this a lot, especially when I was a newer teacher. If I have gotten the reputation of being a teacher that doesn't write up students. Okay. And, I don't know how I've come to that place, but I look at it like this. I'm going to try to do what I can do to not have an incident go up the ladder if I can help it. And a lot of that was due to the fact that I did have a good symbiotic relationship with the other teachers around me. And in order to do that, being able to say, okay, if I've got a student who is not necessarily I don't like to call students bad student, but if I have a student that is really off task today, and I can see that that is the case from the minute they walk in, I can say, let me go ahead and get this lesson done. Now, if that student is acting up at that time, I can say, Evelyn, would it be okay for me to send you Greg for 15 minutes? Okay. In that 15 minutes, I'm able to go ahead and get my lesson already imparted to the other kids and get them started on what they're going to be working on independently or in a group. And then I'll send a student down to go and get Greg from your room. At that point, I can bring Greg back. And many times, the only thing that he needs and that he wants, believe it or not, is that one-on-one attention from you. And that curtails a lot of that behavior. I can sit at the back of the classroom at a table with Greg and tell him the lesson that I've just told everybody else that they're working on independently. And now you have a situation that did not have to be escalated.
Right.
And a lot of times, but without us being able to have that type of group interaction with each other, we don't necessarily even have teachers that we may know that are 2 or 3 doors down. We may not know them in that way. And that hurts a lot. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's true, and then we isolate ourselves to our grade level. Like, there's no reason why you don't have my number if you need anything because I'm in sped.
Right.
So I know a lot. I've been there so
And
long.
she knows most of the students.
And discipline wise, I got that like that. So
Really do.
you could just text me and I'll be right there.
I told her I was like, you were the backbone of
Aw, I know. Yeah, you did say that's so sweet. Yeah. So yeah, we need to reach out to each other more.
Yes.
We might not have time during the day.
I don't like to see a teacher feel like they're on a sinking ship. That's very hard for me because honestly, it's really not supposed to be that hard. It shouldn't be that hard.
Well, we're in a Title I school though.
Well,
So.
but even still, I've always taught in Title I schools, and it shouldn't be that hard because if you've got that communication and that relationship with your other teachers, then you should be able to just pick up that phone and say, I'm sending somebody for just a few minutes.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that student is absent of learning.
Yeah.
That means that learning may be switched around in sequence for a few minutes.
Right.
Not that student does not get the lesson.
Right.
But you don't want a situation where everyone misses the lesson.
Right.
Because student, that's right. And that student may come in and be fine the next day.
Yeah. And then certain students work better with certain teachers. It's a personality thing too.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right.
It's just what it is. So it's unfair to not give them the opportunity to go somewhere to another teacher for 15 minutes instead of forcing them to stay where they don't want to be.
Or having a discipline escalation. And sometimes I've seen teachers become frustrated and do a write-up because someone fell asleep in class. Okay. And to me, a write-up is going to be the last resort. If someone has fallen asleep in class, what I have done many times, and you remember this from last year because we had students that we'd have to tap them on their shoulder, and I'd say, get up, go and wash your face, get some water. You walk the long way back around to my classroom because just that little exercise of walking can wake you up, getting a sip of water. Then you come back and get to it.
Right.
Okay. That saves you from having something like a discipline referral.
Yeah.
Because one of the worst things that can happen is that a student who may be having some issues emotionally, who may not be able to focus or concentrate that day because the lights weren't on at home.
Right.
Or it was cold in the house, or they didn't have any water, so they weren't able to shower. The different kinds of things that can happen, like you said, Miss Mitchell, in a Title I school every day, that can affect the way a student is performing. Things like that to be able to keep a student from having an escalation, a discipline escalation, really can help. Now, Francesca, let me ask you. You said basically your little housekeeping tasks. That would be great to have someone kind of walk you through or give you a heads up on at least.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things that have been challenges?
Autonomy.
Okay, in terms of what? Explain what you mean.
As given the context of our particular school and being a brand new teacher, I feel very under the microscope.
Yes.
And the autonomy to, we're all hired because we're professionals.
Right.
To be given that freedom to, prove that we are competent.
Right.
And bring our own individual styles to teaching our students the best way that we can.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And you know what? I can tell you this. I can tell you. It does get better. It does get better. And that's the kind of thing, in a really strange way. I've never been an administrator, but I've had a keen eye just in observing on how things are done. That's the kind of thing that actually, believe it or not, sometimes people feel that they're doing that under the guise of helping guide you, even though it may be annoying, and it can be very annoying. But usually after your first year, that pressure comes off a whole lot.
Well, to her point though,
Yes.
for a new teacher, the level of judgment should be different. than a
Absolutely.
veteran teacher. And
Yes.
I've seen the judgment, and I've
Yes.
seen the critical, harsh way
Wow.
of trying to get you to do what they want you to do, how they want you to do it. And to me, that's unfair because she's
Yes.
finding her niche
Right.
Yeah.
and just telling her, that's not what I want you to do. And they're always popping up in your class and
Pulling you
staring
out.
at you, pulling you out.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know
It
that.
would, it would break a new teacher.
And you know what?
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that that with us all being in the same school, it can be so different from subject area to subject
Yeah.
area. And I understand too what it feels like to be in that kind of situation because I've had that kind of situation before. And I will be the first one to tell you, and I will say this all the time, there are many ways to drive from Houston to Dallas. You can go through Waco, you can go up 45, you can go around going to the East Texas way. So my point is that you get to the same place, but one way to really, really burn someone out or drive them away quickly is for someone to have that feeling of micromanagement and that you do not trust their expertise in a certain area. Now, I have no problem with someone laying out this to me the way that they want it, what should be done and what needs to be taught. But let me look at that and say, okay, I've seen this work well in this way. Let me try to do it this way. I may want to take my students out into the atrium. We've got some nice outdoor classroom areas at our school. I may want to take my students out into the atrium and we're going to do this. I may not say this the same way that you say it, but we're saying the exact same thing. You've got to give me the autonomy to do that.
Well, not only that, we're in a time where, like, how can I say, we don't know what we're going to get day to day with our
Absolutely.
students.
Absolutely.
So I may have a lesson plan,
Mm-hmm.
and I might have to switch it because I see
All the time you've got to be flexible
you
like that.
have to.
It's fluid.
But
Yes.
my point is for you to walk in my room and see me doing something else, but I switched it for the sake of my
Yes.
students,
Yes.
but then I'm penalized for it.
Yes.
It doesn't work.
I was, for example, just this example, I was doing informational text.
Uh-huh.
And so what I had on my board was that we were going over central idea. And I was
Right.
penalized for going over text structures and central idea. I was penalized for doing more than what was on my board.
But you know,
Yeah.
sometimes to come to a certain place, you have to unpack it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the kind of thing that obviously if you were going to circle back around to it, sometimes in order for students to see how one piece fits into the other piece, you have to do it in a certain way. And that is something that, like I said, I've had that experience before. Nothing can be more frustrating because I'll be the first one to tell you that there are many, many ways to get to the same conclusion. And if you sit that, what we have is something called master courses.
Yeah.
And I like that because we were told at first with these master courses, and I think a lot of it has to do with how things are developing at certain times. And I know that different disciplines have developed their curriculums differently, and it's a kind of fluid situation. Now, with ours, which is social studies, we started working with something called master courses about 5 years ago. Now, and when we were given that, we were told, we want you to read it verbatim, the way that it is, exactly written down. We want you to say this at this time. And I was like, really?
It actually says, teacher says,
Yes.
then pause.
Yes.
Let's do
Yes.
this answer. Now, teacher, say this.
Yes. But you know what? I said, okay, let me go ahead and give it to them the way that they want. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. Let me do it exactly. So I began to do that. We didn't necessarily see that outcomes were any different But what happened is that um, curriculum had to walk through that process to see that it was going to be beneficial to allow those teachers to jump in and do what they called teacher moves and put their own spin
Right.
on imparting this lesson. And we started getting a lot more value to those lessons and a lot more creativity within those lessons. So those things can shift and change. But I certainly understand how that could be frustrating.
And then
Very
it's a
frustrating.
unique time for you because honestly, master courses are awesome.
And yeah,
we're not
I
using
love
that.
them.
ELA is not using that. We
Wow.
don't even have access.
Wow. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. But
They don't get to do the gallery walk.
right, right.
All the exciting things that
Yeah.
the master courses have you do. No.
It's about the test. It's about the standardized test.
Yes.
Nothing,
Yeah.
nothing more.
Nothing more.
Yeah.
And you know what? Even with master courses, the bottom line is to make sure that those students can perform on some successful level on a test too. But you know, it's a lot. We're able to be a lot more creative in how we get there.
Mm-hmm. But the master
Yes.
courses offers creativity.
Oh yes, we use
It's
them.
so awesome.
We use them.
And
Yes.
I'm like, where's the gallery walk, guys?
Yeah, and you remember we used to do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We did the
They
gallery
love it.
walks all the time. Let me ask, we are coming close to the close of the podcast, but I want to ask you both this. Would you recommend that a new teacher coming into teaching right now, if you had a friend that was coming into teaching, would even someone who's coming through a university program, a teacher preparation program through a university, based on what we have observed in the past couple of years, would you recommend that a teacher begin as an associate teacher first to get a feel for what the classroom is actually like? Or do you think it's better to have that baptism by fire where they just jump into it, kind of like you did? Francesca first, tell me your thoughts.
Ease them in. Ease them in. And then,
Yeah.
I guess, like, if they're coming straight from college, they obviously have that passion. Teaching it's their passion, things like that.
Yes.
Someone will take that passion and use it against them.
Yes.
So they're going to come in there with a fire. They're going to see that fire and they're going to try to extinguish it by putting so much on you, and you're going to do it because you love the kids. But ease them in, and these programs need to stress healthy work boundaries, healthy, like, taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
And you know what? Let me say this too, Evelyn. You speak to that, and then I want to say this because this is something that that I think is important that we both impart to you before our podcast is over. But speak to that. Do you think that it's important for people who are just coming in, especially after coming through this pandemic, to work in that school, in that classroom, maybe as an associate teacher first?
I've always thought, way before the pandemic, it should be mandatory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You need to know the age you mesh well with,
right?
The whether or not the district is a fit for you,
yes,
or the kids' temperaments
or the
are fit
school
for you, or the school. You should be an associate teacher that can visit all types of schools,
yes,
age levels, which is what I did,
right?
And that's how I know I could never teach elementary.
Yes,
and that's how it should be mandatory.
And you know what? With that in mind, I do want to say this to you, and I want to say this to any teachers who are out there thinking about coming into the profession, those would-be teachers. It is a great profession to be in, but just like anything else, it's so important that you find the right match and find the right, because every school is different.
Yes.
And I've been at schools before where you were encouraged to use that autonomy. You were encouraged to be as creative as possible. Administration would ask you, what is it that you would like to do? Let's see. And so you've got that kind of situation in many, many places. So I would hate to see a good teacher, not, just be soured, um, because maybe something wasn't the right fit. Believe it or not, you have some teachers that come into the profession, some new teachers coming straight out of school who need that kind of structure, who want that kind of structure and guidance. It's just not appropriate for everyone. So it's about finding that right fit. And that's how you end up with situations where teachers have been there 10, 15, 20 years, because once they find that right fit and they find their niche, people start looking to them for their expertise, and it's just a comfortable situation all the way around. I've seen teachers who have been at schools as administrations have changed over the years, over and over and over again, but they have got a really good relationship with their colleagues, because your colleagues are really the ones that help you and shore you up when you're at that place that's just, you just don't know how you're going to go on the next day, you know.
And I would not leave. I've been there so long, and I was offered
Yes,
another position, but I love our school.
That is
because of the people, because of the
Yeah.
people.
oh my
But
god.
but the thing about it is, and keep this in mind, because we haven't had the chance to be around everyone, all of us together. It's, you just don't know everyone. There are some teachers upstairs on your floor that I've only said hi, hello, and they've been there 2 years now.
Yeah.
But with us not being able to have the meetings just because of an extra cautionary measure of not having people meet together like that, when you only see them on screen, you don't get a chance to do that. Now, of late, we've had the opportunity to come together more. Just within the past maybe 2 or 3 meetings,
hmm
but still, even in those meetings, we've got to be really spread out.
But then most
And
of us have detached ourselves from people because we're used to the isolation.
isn't
Because
that
there's
something?
no way I wouldn't have linked up with you as a new teacher by now.
Plus, like
Yeah.
everything that goes on in the day to day at school, where sometimes my planning period or my lunch, I just sit there and decompress.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it shouldn't be like that because we used to have fun.
Yes. And go to each other's classrooms.
Yes.
And yes, and meet with each other. But I encourage you to, think about you know, the profession and seeing it in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that this that we're experiencing right now is not the
It's not the
norm.
norm.
It's not the norm. And like I said, I've never been at a school outside of the one that I am now where we actually had teachers that had been there 20 and 30 years
Yeah.
at the same school.
Same school.
Yes, that's odd.
Yeah.
And I've been at lots of schools within the Houston area, not lots of them, but maybe four,
hmm
and that wasn't the case there. That wasn't the
And
case
love
there.
showing up every day. Like, I
Yes.
just love that place. Give it time. I promise you, you're going to be like, oh my God, I love this school. It just, if you could, since you've made it to January, you're stronger than you think.
Everyone's
Yeah.
saying that.
Yes.
You better believe it.
Yes.
This
Yes.
is not a normal time.
I took a heart monitor, but I made it.
You know why you took a heart monitor? Because you're not believing in yourself enough.
Well, also, like, people tell you other
Don't worry
things.
about them.
Yeah. Yeah. And the worst thing that you can do is just start listening to a lot of the gossip. She walks away from gossip. I walk away from it, but it's always going to be around you. I won't even sit and listen to it.
No, I only hear what I want to hear. Everything else I tune out. Stop listening to it.
Yes.
Sing a song in your head when they start talking.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. But guys, I want to thank you so much for coming on, so much for sharing what your experiences have been. We have all been through the ringer during this pandemic, but for us to still say that there is something about teaching that's special, whether it's a challenge right now or not, there's something about teaching that is special, and we've got to find a way to keep our teachers in the classroom. When we retire, We can't have the new teachers that are coming in only staying 5 years, and
Right.
because that's not going to be what is most beneficial for our students. They need us now more than ever. So we've got to figure it out. If it means reaching out to a new teacher on your campus, even that you may not be assigned to, by all means do that. I'm going to make sure that I do that more myself, because I've been guilty of just being comfortable and not really reaching out to people. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm glad that you shared that with me. But Evelyn, Francesca, I want to thank you so much for coming in and being on my Schoolhouse to the State House podcast. Guys, please support my campaign. I am a teacher. If you are a teacher out there, you know what we're talking about. You
Right.
sat in the seats that we're in right now. Go to my Facebook page, Crystal Dillard for Texas. Go to my website, Crystal Dillard for Texas.com. You can see what I'm about. You can see what I stand for. And please, please, please support my campaign. Donate to my campaign. I'm a teacher. I'm resourceful. I can make it count. I can make it go a long ways. Thank you, my guests, and we will see you next week. Wave bye, everybody. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.